One kid killing the parents is a bad seed. Two kids killing the parents is a bad family.
Was there a time in which he got a ticket and then drove in an unusual manner afterward?
Yes, we were on the way to a soccer match, and we were sort of late, and somehow he got a ticket, he got pulled over, and he told the officer taking my son to the soccer match, he needs to get there in time so he can be ready mentally and stretch, and so I was trying to explain to the guy, give me the ticket, just follow me, and then give me the ticket when we're there. And the tournament was far away, and the cop obviously wasn't going to follow him and go in. Said no, and he was writing him out the ticket, and my dad was pissed, and when he got the ticket, and then he drove off, and he went to like 5 miles an hour the whole way, and with the officer behind him for most of the road until we got off onto the freeway, and then or the whatever it was, a turnpike, and then I was like unbelievably late for the game at that point, but I remember sitting beside him as we were driving, and I was looking over at the thing, and we're going like 4 or 5 miles an hour, and the police officer was behind us, and I thought for sure Dad was going to jail or something.
Anything happened to him?
No.
Did you think your dad was brave?
Well, he was fearless.
Was he afraid of anything?
Not to my knowledge.
Was there a time when you were home and your brother was with you and you thought you heard a burglar?
Yes, with Diane.
What happened?
We were home with Diane and alone. Well, my mother wasn't there.
How old were you?
This was in her last visit.
82, 83, something like that?
Yes.
So you heard a noise.
I heard a noise. And,
what'd you do?
excuse me. We just heard strange noises. I didn't hear them, actually. Diane heard them and got scared. And she came over and told me, there's these strange noises outside the front door. We went over, and we'd hear like a knocking, a little soft knock, and then we wouldn't hear anything. And then we'd hear we'd say, who is it, in a stern way to try to get the guy to answer. And he wouldn't answer. And I was looking at the door, and I didn't know if it was locked properly or not. And my brother was shaking, and Diane was petrified, and we didn't know who the person was, and I didn't know where my parents were to call. So I went upstairs and got a rifle. My mom had some rifles. And I came downstairs, and I stood on we had the stairwell and the front door, and Diane and Erik were hiding over here. And I stood and I aimed at the door in case somebody was trying to come in to do something.
Did you think this was fun?
Oh, we were terrified.
Were you scared?
I was scared.
Okay.
And I didn't even say anything because I didn't want to goad the guy to walking in because I was just hoping it would go away. And then,
how long did this go on?
10 minutes, something like that. And then the door opened, and my dad was laughing hysterically, and he walked in, and he saw me there with the rifle, and I didn't shoot him, and he just laughed. And Diane was talking about it on and off for the rest of her visit.
Did you think that showed he was really brave?
Overall, I saw my dad as just completely oblivious to fear. I mean, he believed in reincarnation. I don't think he cared about. I mean, I don't. He may have cared about. He wanted to be alive, but I mean, I don't think he was frightened by anything that I saw in his life. And his son standing there with a gun was just. I don't think he was concerned.
You said he believed in reincarnation. Did he talk to you about that?
Yes.
Were your parents religious?
No.
You went to church at Easter. I think your Aunt Terry testified.
Yeah, I was raised, we were sort of following the Catholic religion, and at some point I became more religious than the group, and this became a source of conflict because my dad didn't like that. It was kind of out of the norm for anyone to be praying too much and wanting to say prayers at a table and things like that. But they weren't religious. But we did go to the church on major holidays. But my dad would skip out before the Mass, and we'd have breakfast at the Pancake House instead of going to the service. And then we'd come back real quick when the family was there. We'd always get there so late that the family would be in the pews. Everybody would be standing in the back. And so my dad would just say, oh, we were standing in the back. That's how he treated services.
When you were young, did you play with your dad at all? You talked about the tennis and stuff like that. Did you play like with your soldiers or your animals, or play cards with him, or?
Yeah, we played with the soldiers. We didn't play with the animals or the cards, and
Okay.
he thought the animals were for. These people that play with animals grow up to be faggots. That's what my dad said. So I stopped playing with the animals at some age. But he didn't want to interfere because I was so attached to the animals, and he just kind of let it go a little.
When you played soldiers with him, how would that be? Was that a nice time with you, with him?
No, I only played soldiers one-on-one in a battle once. Although he would help me set up formations in the way that we did the history lessons, we would buy the soldiers that pertained to the thing. Like we would have the Nazis, and they would have their legs going up, and we'd have the entire German army, and we'd have the entire Japanese army, and we'd have Roman soldiers from the back in those times battling, and Hannibal soldiers and things like that. So he would help me set up the formations, but we actually had a battle because he said that he played with these kind of soldiers and this kind of stuff in his childhood a lot. So we had one battle.
What happened?
And we had like a rug that was made with little brown pieces of yarn, kind of like a bearskin, but not quite. And you could hide the soldiers underneath, and so I spent like an hour hiding the soldiers and making formations. And then he set up his men in like 20 minutes, not even, just set them up real quick. Then he left and came back, told me to tell him when I was ready. And I said, okay, I'm ready. And we were supposed to do it like we had done it when we set up the soldiers, where each bullet shoots somebody, but he, I guess, played differently and just took his soldiers, and he would just run them all over mine and start throwing them off. And then before I could react to what was happening, he would done it and take some more men off, and then he would move his soldiers over his head like this. And he won in like less than a minute. And I started crying and saying, this is not how it's supposed to be done, and I don't know what. And my dad just said, you don't know how to play. And
How old were you?
I was, this was pretty early. I was like 11, 12, somewhere in there.
Did your dad like to play jokes on people?
Yeah.
And were those jokes sometimes cruel?
Yes.
And did you have a shower in Princeton Junction, which was the house between Muncie and Pennington, that had something wrong with it?
Yes, there was a wrench used to turn on the water.
Did you shower with your dad in the Princeton Junction house?
I did.
Did you shower with your dad in the Pennington house?
Yes, sometimes.
Did you shower with your dad in the Beverly Hills house?
Sometimes.
When you showered with your dad in the Princeton Junction house, what was the joke that he would play?
I would be in there, and sometimes my brother would be in there too, the three of us. And he would turn the water all the way to cold sometimes, and then he would just step out and hold us in. And then the water would go from being warm to just freezing water. And we would be screaming and trying to get out. And he would do this, and he would be laughing and keep us in there until my brother got so hysterical that he was like, all right,
Would he take the wrench with him when he...
Yeah, he took the wrench with him. That's why we couldn't change it.
And would you get upset about it?
What?
Would you get upset when that happened?
Yeah, I would. The cold water was like shock, and I would be. Sometimes when those things happen, I didn't just. I reacted very differently to my brother. I tried to really or placate my dad. I was just really focused on that. Always very attentive to my dad's reactions. Look for a weakness or something, like if he seemed like he was wavering, I'd say, come on, Dad, let us out. And I'd get out that way.
And how would your brother react?
My brother would just fall apart, start crying and hitting the door and making a big scene. And that's what my dad wanted. He enjoyed it. That would make him laugh. And then my brother would get to a point where he was screaming too loud, and Dad just, my brother, it's no fun.
How many times that happened?
That happened, that I remember, only in the Princeton Junction house.
How long did you live there?
I lived there for 1 year. And that may be because that was the one that had the glass door. The other ones were curtains. That was 9.
Now, was this a regular stall shower or a bathtub that has a shower head?
No, it's a stall shower with a glass door that you can just slip out and push close.
Would your brother be reluctant to get in the shower after these things happened, or would you be?
Yeah, Erik would not want to get in, and my dad would say, "Oh, come on, I'm not going to do that to you," and coax him along, and we would shower, and then he would just do it. And he did that a lot, and that was, you could call it a joke, but he was. These were more like lessons of trust. That I had lots of experiences with him regarding trust.
What do you mean, lessons regarding trust? What was the lesson you were to learn about trust?
That you could not trust anyone. You shouldn't trust anyone. And that included your father. And if you did, then it's your fault, whatever happens. And that meant even if he had made promises, and I remember times when he'd be pushing me on the swing, and I'd say, "Dad, I don't want to go. It's scary if you go too hard." And he would say, "Oh no, I'm just going to push you if you don't," because I could have just swung myself, and I asked him to push me, and so he was pushing me, and he just started pushing me, so where the swing would get slack, and then would come down on itself, and I caught my arm in the chain. And scraped up my arm, bruised my arm, and I was crying. And I said, "Why?" And I was crying, and he just said, "I've told you, just don't trust people like that. Not even me." And there were other times too. There were other times when he would torment Erik with having him jump off things into his arms. And he'd say, "Come on, Erik. No, I'm going to catch you. Come on." And Erik would jump, and he would catch him. He'd put him back on all the high counters we had in the kitchen. He'd catch him, put him back on. And then one of the times he wouldn't catch him. And my brother would just fall face first, slam on the ground, and immediately explode into tears, cry. And my dad would just pretty much look at me, at least this is the times I remember, he'd look at me and says, "You see, you just don't trust anybody." And I don't know if it's preparing me for life, and that's the sense I got, it's preparing me for life.
You talked about your dad grabbing you out of the chair at dinner if you said the wrong thing. What other forms of punishment did you get at the hand of your dad? In the Muncie house.
I got thrown outside. I got punched in the stomach very often. And I got beaten with the belt.
And your brother, would you see him get physically punished in front of you?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of physical punishment did you see of him?
My brother was not really worthy of a punch, according to my dad. My dad would slap the hell out of him a lot. Like I told you earlier, he would just slap him. His punishment, unless he was just furious, he would take him to our bedroom. We shared a bedroom, and he would beat him with the belt, pretty much in the same way he beat me.
Did you ever see an incident on the tennis court when you were both older and living in Pennington involving Erik?
Yes.
And what happened there?
That was another way my dad sort of lost control, is throwing you against things. And that time on the tennis court, my brother was having a problem with some stroke. I really wasn't paying attention too much, and next thing I knew, my brother was saying no. My dad had him by the shirt and dragged him along just carried him along the court and just threw him up against the screen. And up in the mesh part, and I was terrified. These things were terrifying because you wanted to do something, but if you got involved, it would just make it worse. So I just kind of hovered along, and my brother was hysterical, and he dragged him along the grass into the basement, and kept telling me to go away, and I kept hovering around because I wanted to make sure he didn't do anything that would really hurt my brother. And he didn't end up beating him up or anything. He just threw him against the couch and started screaming at him right in his face that he would never talk back to him again.
How old was your brother at that time?
He was, I think 13, somewhere around there.
Do you have a scar by your left eye?
Yeah, from the coffee table.
And your attention. Do you recognize this picture?
I recognize who's in it.
Who's in it?
That's myself and Tristesse.
And does something appear to be wrong with your left eye?
Yeah, that's the injury to my left eye. That's the injury to my left eye when I got thrown into the coffee table.
What happened that you got thrown into the coffee table?
I was roughhousing with my dad in the Muncie house, and I grabbed his genitals at one point, which he did to me a lot, but he just snapped. As soon as I did that, he yanked me up, and he said something, but I don't remember, and threw me basically it was only a couple feet, but across the room into a coffee table. And I split my eye open and was just screaming, and he took me by the arm, and he gave me to my mother, and we went to the hospital.
She comfort you?
No, she was very upset. She was upset that I was roughhousing with my dad, and that's what I get for roughhousing with my dad, and I should know better, and and I did get the sense that maybe, I always felt maybe she was sorry and she just wished it didn't happen or something, and so was attacking me in a response to not being able to say that. But she was very harsh.
Do you have another scar on your face below your lower lip?
Yes.
How old were you when you got that?
I was about 17, I think.
And how did that happen?
I was in the tennis. I was at a club with a coach of mine, and we were playing. And my coach got called off the.
Okay, go ahead.
Coach got called off the court for a phone call, and then he came back and said, "It's your dad. Father wants us to play outside," and it was raining. I said, "Well, it's raining," and he said, "Well, it's not raining. It basically almost stopped raining, and he wants us to go out," and he was very firm. We should go out and dry the courts off, because what am I doing practicing indoors when I've got a tournament outdoors that weekend? Go out, dry the courts, play out there. So a lot of times this coach would just, he won't know, we'll just stay indoors, but decided to go and do that. And we went out to the courts, in the public courts, and we brought a bunch of towels and we dried the courts, and we started playing. And then, we wouldn't play more than 5 minutes, and my dad pulled up in the limo, came around the side of the bushes, came to a stop. We were like, man, he must have called from the car. We thought he was at his office in New York, and he couldn't get there. So he pulled up, and he got out, and he was watching. So we were relieved that we had actually gone to the courts, and we were very nervous whenever my dad was around, especially my coach, because my dad was very aggressive. And I had sprained my ankle, and so I had an ankle problem still, and I was playing with it. And so I just wasn't running as fast, and my dad was ridiculing me and pushing me and saying, what a baby. Look, Brad, he can't run fast. Look at him. Look at him, oh, poor baby. Can't play tennis. Can't run. His ankle hurts. He was doing that over and over and over. And then finally I was so embarrassed, and I just couldn't take it anymore. And I lost control, and I told my dad, why don't you just shut up? And
had you ever said anything like that to your dad before?
No, never. And my coach was just like this, and I looked at him, my dad. You couldn't believe the transformation of my dad. He just turned red, and he didn't know what to do with himself. He grabbed the ball, and he threw it at me, and the ball hit me.
Could you have stepped out of the way?
Yes.
Why didn't you?
I wanted the ball to hit me.
Why?
Because I had screwed up, and I was hoping. My dad he lost control there, and I wanted to dissipate it. Maybe if he was going to throw a ball at me, I was going to make sure I got hit by the ball. So I got hit by the ball, and he told me to come over, and I kind of walked up to him. And he led me over to the back of the car.
How did he lead you over to the back of the car?
He just grabbed me by the arm and led me. Didn't drag me or anything, because my coach was right there. And he put me in the back of the car. As soon as I got in the back of the car, he just punched me straight in the face. And I went back against the window, and he grabbed my neck. He said, don't ever embarrass me like that again, or I'll kill you.
What did you do?
Well, I didn't do anything. I just sat there, and I had blood all over my shirt.
I can't hear you. Move up. I asked you what you did.
I was in shock. I didn't do anything. I nodded my head, and he tightened his grip on my neck, and he says, is that perfectly clear? And I said, yes.
Did you ever talk back to him again?
No, I never talked back to him again. And I didn't see my coach for almost a week. And
what happened to your lip?
It split open completely, and we went back home. Long drive home, and my mother basically attended me, and we just put gauze in the whole thing.
When you got home, did you get out of the car with your dad, or did he get out?
No, he got out first. I was really in shock, and I just sat there. I didn't know what the limo driver was going to do. I didn't want him to see me. I was embarrassed. I didn't know what Brad was going to say later. I just sat in the car. He got out immediately, walked to the house.
Let me back you up. After he hit you in the face, did you leave immediately, or did your dad get out of the car?
Oh, he got out of the car, left me there, and he went and he finished picking up the balls with Brad. And apparently he told Brad, "I'm really sorry that this happened. It'll never happen again." And so then eventually, as soon as he picked up finishing the balls, he came back. He told the driver, "Let's go."
Were you crying?
I was sobbing, and blood everywhere, and just staying near the door.
When you got home then, you said your dad got out first. Your dad got out first?
Right, he got out first. He went into the house, and then he came back out to settle something with the driver. He told me, "Come on." And I got out, and we got my rackets out of the trunk, and I went into the house, and my mom was waiting for me. She had stuff ready to take care of me.
She asked you what happened?
No. She knew what happened. I'm sure my dad told her.
She say anything to you about it?
No, she never said anything about it.
She get in a fight with your dad over it?
No.
Was it ever discussed?
Objection, lack of foundation.
Sustained.
Was it ever discussed in your presence?
It
Did
was-
you ever hear your mom and dad talk about it, or your mom ask you anything about
No,
it?
I thought maybe I was going to be going to the hospital, and she said, no, you don't need to go. It's going to be all right. It'll be fine. And it was, basically, other than the scar that was left.
You were 16, 17 years old?
I was 17.
Why didn't you hit your dad back?
I just didn't hit my dad back.
Were you mad at him?
No, I was in shock, really. 'Cause I hadn't been punched like that. I hadn't been punched like that ever, actually. And I would never hit my dad back. That would be crazy.
Why?
My dad was just a very I just don't think he would have. I don't know what he would have done to me. I would not have just hit my dad or really got angry with my dad either. He didn't tolerate that. That's why that happened to my brother when my brother said no. And only my mother fought back with my dad. Nobody I ever saw in my life. And when he said that, I believed him. And he took the way people treated him very seriously. And you did not treat my father with disrespect.
Did you ever see anybody, except you said your mother, treat your father with disrespect?
Never. And yeah, some coaches might argue with him on tennis, be about as far as he would tolerate. And those people usually got fired.
Your Honor, could we stop at this point before I go into another section?
All right, and you'll be ready with both juries tomorrow morning?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll recess until tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Don't discuss this case with anyone. Don't form any...